Holding down the fort, getting ready to tell you everything that you need to know about the Week 3 action that happened over the weekend. A lot of games, a lot of things went down. And Field, at the risk of being efficient, we just have so much to be able to get into. We're doing a new segment like we have been doing the first 2 weeks called Crushed It or Flushed It.
Right.
This week you're going to handle Crushed It, and there's a handful of good names in there, but let's get things started because we got a whole lot in our note that I want to make sure we get to.
By the way, way more fun to handle Crush It than Flush It.
Yes,
because
you're not
talking
wrong.
about guys that disappointed, especially guys that are on your own roster, not so fun. So let's be Mr. Nice Guy right now. We begin with Eagles wide receiver Devonte Smith, who could have retired at halftime and still have been maybe the best player amongst all wide receivers in fantasy in Week 3, as he finished with 8 catches for 169 yards and a touchdown. That was his best game by far, 30.9 fantasy points. It's his third game with over 115 receiving yards. You could still factor in that Week 1 bagel when he had 0 catches on 4 targets, and his per-game averages will actually look pretty decent so far.
Yeah.
But back-to-back start performances, and if you have any Eagle, I don't care if they are a wide receiver or if they are the water boy, I want a part of them on my fantasy roster right now because they look like a wagon, and Jalen Hurts looks like a part of the conversation for the NFL's real-life MVP. And I say he's only a part of the conversation because the frontrunner might be a guy named Lamar Jackson, who certainly is the frontrunner for fantasy's MVP amongst quarterbacks, as on Sunday, he had 218 passing yards. He had 107 rushing yards. He had 4 touchdowns through the air. He had another one on the ground. It's his 12th career game with at least 100 rushing yards. He has more fantasy points to the first 3 games of his season than any other quarterback in the history of the NFL. Hat tip to our guy, Tristan H. Cockcroft, and in this case, the H stands for hat tip. It's been the revenge tour of Lamar Jackson. It was one of my thoughts during the preseason. Why are we not paying more attention to the possibility of him being quarterback 1? He is quarterback 1 right now. He's the best player in fantasy football right now. And this is familiar. Derrick Henry, looking like Derrick Henry again, Daniel, right? He had 85 rushing yards and a touchdown, which is cool, but not necessarily like intergalactic, which is what he normally is. But he had 5 catches for 58 yards and 25.3 fantasy points. This was great.
Yep, that's
huge. He looked like Christian McCaffrey out there on Sunday, right? 5 catches, 58 yards. You love that from Derrick Henry. And then basically, if you're a running back in the NFC North, but you don't start for your team, you were good on Sunday.
Really well.
How about this? Khalil Herbert, who steps in for an injured David Montgomery. It was an ankle injury that basically cost him the entirety of the game.
Yep.
Khalil Herbert had 157 rushing yards, plus 2 rushing touchdowns, plus 2 catches for 12 yards. David Montgomery has been the man up until this point, but we'll see whether he's available in Week 4. If not, Khalil Herbert will be the number 1 waiver wire ad of the week. Speaking of injuries, Dalvin Cook hurt his shoulder on a play in which he got hurt running into one of his own offensive linemen and fumbled. He left the game. He may play this upcoming Sunday when they travel across the pond to play the Saints in London. But Madison filled in pretty well. He had 28 rushing yards and a touchdown with 1 catch for 14 yards. We've talked about this many times over. If Madison's the guy in place of Dalvin Cook, you're not quite getting Dalvin Cook, but you're getting Dalvin Cook light, which is a very good thing for fantasy most Sundays. And then Jamal Williams keeps doing what he does. He now has 4 touchdowns this season on the ground, 87 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 catches for 20 yards for your Detroit Lions. Worth noting that not only is Deandre Swift playing through an ankle injury right now, but a shoulder injury as well. This is one of those rock and a hard place spots, though, for fantasy because you still have to play Swift. You just don't know how much involved Jamal Williams will be. And on Sunday, no one was making the case to play Jamal Williams, but he was awesome. But it's worth monitoring Swift's status in case this gets worse and all of a sudden Jamal Williams is the guy. We know he's very capable.
Absolutely. They're definitely utilizing him in that role. I got so many tweets saying I love Jamal Williams and the Lions as a Lions fan. As a Deandre Swift manager, I am so frustrated right now because 2 weeks in a row, it's felt like you've just had Deandre Swift having the rug pulled out from underneath him. All right, Liz, let's talk about people who flushed it this week. I know not as fun as Fields' list, but you can have some fun with this. This one's all right, too. So who do you like this week?
No,
or not
I'm
like?
Or
who do you not
like?
Positivity.
Yeah.
I'm going to take all of that positivity into this one. And let's talk about Carson Wentz first, because he didn't just make you sweat. He made everybody cry with this performance. Just 211 passing yards, 22 rushing yards, a lost fumble. It is particularly concerning since he was a great stream over the past 2 weeks, right? Over 300 yards and 3 passing touchdowns in back-to-back games. But the magic wore off today. He only completed 58% of his passes and for no touchdowns. Also a YPA of under 5. Brandon Graham and the Eagles defensive front terrorized him the entire game to the tune of 9 sacks. If you're looking for a silver lining, though, he didn't throw a pick. Upcoming schedule: at Dallas versus Tennessee, at Chicago versus Green Bay. I'm not quite sure that any of those games are going to be high scoring enough to make Wentz a regular stream. He's going to probably dip below that top 15 number now as we move forward. All right, looking at another, oh my goodness, how has this happened 2 weeks in a row? Justin Jefferson has let us down. I mean, maybe you might like this, Doc. We have to upgrade Jeffrey Okudah because he held not just Justin Jefferson into check today, but Devonte Smith, who, definitely bounced back, as Field mentioned, in week 1. Terry McLaurin in week 2. Both those guys caught just 3 balls for under 25 yards in Okudah's coverage. So just something to be mindful of matchup-wise as the season unfolds. I think the frustrating part, though, is that Justin Jefferson, an elite wide receiver, should be able to produce regardless of the coverage that he's in. I mean, we made the Darius Slay excuse last week. It's a little bit concerning. And Kevin O'Connell is finding ways to spread the ball around rather than have Kirk Cousins force feed Justin Jefferson and potentially throw up on himself, right? We don't want any throw up on Kirk Cousins' chest. So I think that we need now know what Justin Jefferson's floor is. Actually, I think probably last week was closer to his floor. You're not going to sit him, but you have to adjust your roster and construct it accordingly now. Finally, this one pains me. Austin Eckler has not been particularly efficient on the ground over the past 2 weeks. 4 carries for 5 yards today. Now, I think part of that was because he was chipping a whole lot. Corey Lindsley not in the lineup, then Rashawn Slater left. So when you've got a quarterback who's still playing in the fourth quarter with rib cartilage injury, you're probably going to do your best to protect him. He did make up for it, Eckler did, via the passing game. Caught 8 of 8, so we know he's a PPR stud. I think actually less than Austin Eckler flushing it, Brandon Staley deserves to be flushed for his decision-making in this particular game. But we also know that Brandon Staley is a guy who's going to go for it at all times, really, really stubborn. He got lucky this week in that there wasn't an injury to Justin Herbert. Plenty of other injuries, though. Maybe he needs to check his stubbornness and be a little bit more reasonable moving forward.
Yeah, it's really frustrating when you look at Austin Eckler to have 8 catches on the day and only 13 some odd fantasy points. It's almost impossible for you to have 8 catches and 13 fantasy points as Austin Eckler.
I'm not disagreeing with Liz. As a matter of fact, I'm going to agree with Liz. But think about what you just said. Austin Eckler's passing game and rushing utilization was down because he was too busy chipping. This is not a reference to the President's Cup over the weekend on the golf course. Austin Eckler, who is pint-sized by NFL standards amongst running backs, was too busy chipping to do his normal job. I miss 2021 not that many ways, but in some ways. In some ways. Austin Eckler 2021 was way more fun than 2022 Austin Eckler. I got to be honest with you, that was a tough watch for the Chargers today. They got them butts whooped. Now, the Jaguars, we owe you major credit. You have been legit. But this Chargers offense, yuck on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, agreed with that one. All right, we got Matchup Talk. Matchup Talk is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico and see all the ways that you could save. Each one of us is going to pick a matchup that we liked from today's slate. Liz, you picked the Dolphins and the Bills because why not? There are so many awesome names from that game to be able to talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to let you host this game. Field and I are going to be your analysts from that standpoint. What is it that you liked about this game? Let's talk about it.
Well, I like all of the pieces that were at play here, right? So I think we have to talk about this game. Josh Allen, let's talk about him first. This man has gone over 325 total yards plus multiple passing touchdowns in all 3 games, even if the Bills lost and were quite frustrated at how they lost. We still can't sit Josh Allen. Maybe he's second to. I mean, when you think about the top quarterbacks in fantasy right now, you're thinking about Lamar Jackson, like Field said, right? You're thinking about Jalen Hurts, and you're thinking about Josh Allen. He's been absolutely money. They're passing like crazy. And even though, again, they lost this week, I'm looking at the matchup next week. They have the Baltimore Ravens. Didn't Mac Jones just carve up the Ravens for over 300 passing yards? Oh my goodness, watch out, Ravens nest. So yes, Josh Allen continues to be a stud. Stephon Diggs, no hat trick, but please don't complain. 7 catches for 74 yards. He is on pace for 153 receptions over the season. He has over 100 catches in both of his seasons with Buffalo. There's no sitting him either, even if he didn't give you, like I said, 3 touchdowns. Gabe Davis, this one's a little bit interesting. You know, I mentioned, Daniel, in our fantasy improv piece that I don't really like trading. And that motivated me to make a trade late last night in a dynasty league. I gave Austin Eckler and Gabe Davis for Kyler Murray and Cordarrelle Patterson. I also had Dak, so I was in a bit of a spot.
Needed a quarterback.
So I felt pretty good about that in this week. Now, Gabe Davis is not going to see a ton of targets. That has never been his game. If you think about the way he was utilized in college, that carried over to his rookie season. I think he scored 2 touchdowns over the first 4 weeks of 2020. And then his usage, fell a little bit because he wasn't the route runner that he was supposed to be, etc. And now that he is the guy, he's still not going to get a ton of volume, but he is going to see a ton of high value looks, which are obviously super valuable when you have Josh Allen throwing the ball. But the consistency, I don't think, is ever going to be there in terms of a week-to-week usage situation, right? Like on balance over the course of the season, it would not surprise me if he ends up as a wide receiver 3 overall, even if he gives you like top 5 weeks here and there.
Gabe Davis is one that...
Let's start with those 3.
Yeah, no, totally fair, Liz. And I think Gabe Davis is one that's going to be tough, right? Because there was so much buzz coming into the season. A lot of people invested a really high draft pick in Gabe Davis, or an earlier round pick in Gabe Davis, given the fact that we hadn't really seen a whole lot of it other than the end of last year.
Yeah.
And then today, he ran a team high 63 routes.
He was playing every snap.
He was on the field all the time, and Josh Allen threw the ball over 60 times.
Yeah, I'm less worried than you guys are on Gabe Davis. He is fighting through that ankle injury, which you presume will get better with another full week finally ahead of them. They play Baltimore next week, and I thought that the fact that Josh Allen threw the ball 63 times was in part a reflection of the fact that they had the ball for most of the game. The Dolphins ran 39 offensive plays. That's just a wow number. And beyond that, I thought that they had to turn to different methods today, right? It was not a vertical passing day game for the Buffalo Bills. It was the running backs, right? Devin Singletary had 9 catches today. Even Zach Moss had some work, and James Cook got some work, and backup tight ends were getting some work. So I thought that today was much more the outlier than what I expected at Gabe Davis. I'm a little more optimistic than the both of you on young Gabe.
I just feel like Gabe Davis, not a perfect equivalent, but like Gabe Davis is just going to feel like Mike Williams to me.
I had a feeling you were going there. Maybe. Yeah, big body, good in the right area. That would be a reasonable analog. I think good days are ahead, especially in this offense. Where that quarterback who did get x-rays after the game. He says he's fine. It's a hand injury. All good.
Yep. What else do you like from the Bills?
Well, I mean, you mentioned you mentioned Devin Singletary, 13 rushing yards, 9 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. He has yet to have 10 carries this season, but at least in this game made up for it in the passing game. I don't think we could count on that on a week-to-week basis. I also feel like, just to piggyback on what Field said, the Dawson Knox foot situation is a part of this wrinkle that hasn't been fully ironed out. And last year, before Gabe Davis had his breakout, it was Knox that Allen was regularly looking to in the red area. He had that awful hand injury, remember? I think that kind of kept him off the field a little bit. So I just want to remind everybody of that puzzle piece as we go through all of these guys, including Isaiah McKenzie, 7 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown, over 20 fantasy points. He's had a touchdown in 2 of his last 3 weeks, 7 catches in this game, and had 6 targets, though, through 2 weeks. I think the silver lining here is that you want to flex a player that's attached to this offense, particularly when they're running 90 plays, right? Talked about how many plays the Dolphins ran. Well, Buffalo ran 90. And I do think it's good that he has now outpaced Jamison Crowder in terms of that slot role. But again, there's just so many mouths to feed. It's like you want to get a piece of this pie, and you are never going to be left hungry because the pie is just so delicious.
Well, and that is.
I don't even like pie, but that's my analogy.
Hold on. No, I'm just kidding. Well, wait.
We don't have enough time to get into
discuss that one in a future show. You don't like pie? What's the matter?
We got a serious thing we got to dive into. All right, really quickly, let's talk about the Dolphins on the other side of that, Liz, because Tyreek was kind of frustrating today. Jalen Waddle obviously got the job done, but I think Tua is one of the bigger conversations because we were all wondering, what is Tua Tagovailoa going to look like after his big week 2? And then actually he got hurt, and it was kind of a tough week for him here in week 3.
It was a tough week. I think we also really were optimistic after the momentum of last week and heading into a matchup with a Bills defense that was so banged up. I'm still going to hold pretty firm on he's going to give you a floor of 15 or a ceiling of 5. Tyreek Hill got taken away, but you mentioned Jalen Waddle, 4 catches over 100 yards, 15 fantasy points. He's had a catch over 40 yards in all 3 games. The rapport is clearly there. There are just so many field stretchers that it's too hard to count Tua out. And I am going to give him an excuse when he was maybe concussed and then still played the game.
Yeah, more on that later on in the week when we have a bit more information. I'll just say this, not throwing the game out. You can't do that. But as I mentioned, they ran 39 offensive plays. That's like 60% of what you normally expect a team to run. So when you're sitting there saying, well, Tua only completed 13 passes, they barely played offense on Sunday. Like, they really didn't need to. Sort of a wonky game. Kind of reminds me what we saw in week 1 with the 49ers and the Bears. You get to toss a lot of that out based off of the circumstances of Sunday's game.
Sure. All right, Phil, let's talk about this next game. You have got the Bucs and the Packers. Oh, sorry. Before we do that, Liz, I skipped your running backs. I apologize about that.
Oh.
Dolphins running backs. Do you like Chase Edmonds? Is he somebody that you're looking at for future weeks?
I mean, you can skip them because they are going to be a constant point of frustration for fantasy managers. There's just, this week, Chase Edmonds scored his first 2 touchdowns as a Dolphin. He was the winner, even though Raheem Mostert out-touched him by 2 totes. Edmonds, and I think Mike Clay made a really good point on FF Now this morning, stating something similar, is the better pass catcher. So I'm going to continue to give him the edge. And I also feel like when you have these field stretchers, these 2 running backs are going to see a lot of light boxes. We love that, particularly given their speed, Raheem Mostert's speed especially. So this is going to be a constant frustration. You're going to have to play the matchups. You're going to flex them. Sometimes one of them's going to go off while he's on your bench because you started somebody in a better matchup with theoretically more volume. And I think you just need to get used to the carousel until one of them either pulls away more or there's an injury, which is not entirely impossible given the histories of both of these guys.
Let's talk about the Buccaneers and the Packers. And you're thinking to yourself, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, plenty of points, huh? So fast, my friends, as our good buddy Lee Corso often says on College Game Day. And this was a tough watch. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, I mentioned how the Chargers were a tough watch on offense. These 2 teams were like grinding it out. Let's get to the nitty-gritty here. It's been a slow start for Tom Brady, who had just 14.7 fantasy points. That included a late touchdown. They nearly converted the 2-point conversion as well, which would have sent the game to overtime. But he has yet to score 15 fantasy points in a game this season. Guys, he's throwing the passes to the likes of Scotty Miller and Cole Beasley and Brashad Perriman and Russell Gage. We need to see Tom Brady with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Julio Jones back on the field. We think that could happen at some point over the next few weeks. But we're going to have a conversation again on whether you should be starting Tom Brady back-to-back weeks. I have sat him, and the upside is just not there right now, and it's having a trickle-down impact. Leonard Fournette getting bottled up again as a runner, 35 rushing yards. He did have 5 catches. That kind of saved you, but the highest-scoring player for the Buccaneers on Sunday was Russell Gage, who had 12 catches for 87 yards plus a touchdown. Right now, with Mike Evans back and Leonard Fournette, you're going to be starting those guys. But right now, this Bucs offense is a shell of what we thought it might be coming into the season, and certainly what it was last year. The Packers aren't much better right now.
No.
Aaron Rodgers finished with just 16.1 fantasy points. We told you it was going to be a tough matchup against the Buccaneers. They're really good on defense, but Rodgers has yet to score 16.5 fantasy points this season. Like, think about some average can be quarterbacks in the NFL. They've gone way above 16.5 in a game so far this year. Aaron Jones had 5.7 fantasy points. A.J. Dillon had 5.8 fantasy points. This is why it's tough to play against the Buccaneers rushing defense, because they're just so stout up front. And those two running backs combined for a total of 5 catches and 17 yards. So it's good when they're scoring touchdowns and have more upside in the passing game, but this is a tough week for them. So here's a saving grace. Allen Lazard and Romeo Dobbs. As Allen Lazard had 4 catches for 45 yards. Daniel caught another touchdown. It's his 5th straight game, going back to last regular season with a touchdown. He's a trusted agent for Aaron Rodgers, but maybe, just maybe, we saw the blossoming of a young rookie that got a lot of interest during the preseason. Romeo Dobbs, who looked great. He looked great. And Matt LaFleur mentioned him during the week, saying he kind of needs to play a little bit more. And I'm thinking to myself, well, duh, like they have nobody else healthy and available. Well, Romeo Dobbs, 8 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown, looked the part. This after just 6 catches for 64 yards in the first 2 games combined. I expect him to be a popular waiver wire ad this week. I'm not immediately telling you need to thrust him into your lineup, but he's a top 30 play sight unseen. They play the Patriots in week 4, but he's a very intriguing piece all of a sudden because someone's got to catch passes, and the preseason buzz was large and substantial enough that a week like today could further cement him as one of the players that Rodgers wants to see more of. And while it has been a slow start for Aaron Rodgers, I do think better days will be ahead, especially when they get into more of their divisional matchups. They have some defense that I think they can expose in the passing game later on this season.
All right. I'm going to talk about the Panthers and Saints.
You have to.
Yeah. Well, I am contractually obligated to do that. All right. Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to start here.
Okay.
2017 to 2021.
19 catches, right?
That is it. 19 catches.
In the first half?
Yeah, for Christian McCaffrey this week. No, that is not it. 2017 to 2021, he averaged 7.6 targets per game. This year, 2022, he is averaging 4.6. Where does Christian McCaffrey's value come from, Field Yates?
From
catching the football.
In
You're
a world
right.
that actually is normal, yes, it's catching the football.
Catching the football.
That's right.
So prior to this year, 41% of Christian McCaffrey's fantasy points came via the rush, meaning that 59% came from him being a pass catcher.
He's really good at that.
Which is a part of
one of the best ever.
That's why you drafted him at 1.02. This year, 66% of his fantasy points are coming from the ground. It's like he's flipped. 33% is coming from the pass. Baker Mayfield and this offense have turned Christian McCaffrey into like Alvin Kamara from last year. Remember how we were complaining about Alvin Kamara just became a running back and he stopped catching the passes?
That's a great point.
This is what it feels like with Christian McCaffrey. And I know we've gone back and forth about this because I'm disappointed by Christian McCaffrey. But even though I'm disappointed, he's the only running back, to your point, that has been consistent throughout the first couple of weeks, and that's still with him scoring 13 points this week.
Christian McCaffrey is lucky that all running backs are bad.
Right.
All running backs are bad. Jonathan Taylor had another dud day. I mean, by Jonathan Taylor's standards today, right? Dalvin Cook gets hurt. Derrick Henry did very little in week 2, right? We've seen guys. Alvin Kamara was bad again today. Even Najee Harris was.
Leonard Fournette, Deandre Swift.
I mean,
there's a bunch of guys. All
running backs are bad. The only thing that matters in fantasy football is Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
It's the only thing that matters.
That's it.
Everything else is just gravy.
That's where everything's going to come back to. You should have just drafted Cooper Kupp is sort of where we're
honestly,
laying on
the only running back that I actually enjoy playing so far this year is James Robinson. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much it.
He feels fun to play, too.
Yeah, the rest of them, I'm just like, do I have to? Yes, you have to play 2 per week.
And listen, you're not doing anything. You're starting Christian McCaffrey every week. You're not doing anything ever other than starting Christian McCaffrey every single week. But there is just Baker Mayfield in this offense is different than what my expectation was coming into this year. Yeah. And that has not just impacted Christian McCaffrey, Field Yates.
It has not. And DJ Moore, does he play? Did he retire? What happened to him?
I don't. Here's the good. DJ Moore.
Okay,
here's the good. Ready? Here's the good.
Okay, he's a nice guy.
7 catches for 87 yards and 1 touchdown. That's good, right? That's his numbers for the season. He has 7 catches for 87 yards and 1 touchdown after 3 full games. How awful is that? Did you know that today Laviska Shenault?
I don't want to hear this.
Laviska Shenault has more receiving yards than DJ Moore does on the season, and that's after catching 4 passes for 90 yards today.
So what's up here? Let's just take a big step back logically. And one thing that I want to be very clear about, and I think I've made this point recently, but I want to double down on it, is that I know 1/100th of what NFL coaches know.
Sure.
You know what? 1/1000th of what NFL coaches know, right? And that might be generous. But when you are the Panthers, wouldn't you think that your $20 million per year receiver and Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore, and your $16 million per year running back in Christian McCaffrey would be really useful as pass catchers because they're really good at doing that.
Really good at that because you signed them to do that job for your team. And so that's the part that I don't understand. I'm at a spot coming into this week, Field Yates, and I got to look. I'm going to look at things, but I'm at a spot where I think if I need to potentially bench DJ Moore for a better flex option off of my bench after having 6 targets each of the first 3 weeks, there's very little upside in this offense for me to feel Christian McCaffrey's different, but DJ Moore, it gives me a lot of nervousness to think about starting him here.
Hey, Liz, can I just let you know a little something here? Daniel traded me DJ Moore in this keeper league that we play in about, 7 days ago.
No big deal.
So you decide whether or not Daniel is up to some sort of hijinks.
Wait, you got me. That was for you got me back for the Lamar Jackson, Devonte Williams, Derrick Henry trade that we did that I also talked about in our Fantasy Improv article last week. So I think
some moves work out better than others. I owed you one. I owed you one. Damn it.
All right. So let's talk about the other side. The Saints. Alvin Kamara is still getting work.
Another running back.
But he was tough again today.
Daniel, what the heck's going on here?
8 fantasy points in week 1. He sat out last week with a rib injury. Less than 8 fantasy points again today. Obviously, he was impacted by that. You could tell that he was still hurt, right? And Jameis Winston is rough. But I think the main thing I'm taking away from this, I'm still starting Alvin Kamara every week. I just want to say this for right now.
Because there are no good running backs.
Because there's no one else left. So I'm starting him every week because of what he can potentially be. But my biggest takeaway from this game is Chris Olave. Olave and the targets that he's getting, everything that is exciting about what we were hoping to see. Jameis throwing the ball downfield, airing it out to Chris Olave, Liz. This is finally what I wanted to be able to see from one of these young wide receivers. If there's somebody on the Saints I'm excited about, it is him, and it is basically him alone. Do you have anyone else on the Saints that you like?
No, but I just want to point out, I love the Olave take. I love that he is being elevated, right? It was Garrett Wilson last week. It's his teammate, Chris Olave, this week. But Jameis Winston is playing with a broken back, right? He's still playing. He had it last week, too. Michael Thomas exited this contest early with an injury. Alvin Kamara did see 7 targets. He has the rib issue, as you mentioned. He only caught 7 of those balls, but it was Chris Olave that I think was the beneficiary of Thomas's early exit. So I just want to put that asterisk in there. Maybe that earns him more playing time, particularly if he's connecting to Winston when Winston isn't feeling, at his best. But I just expected this Saints offense to have more juice in general. I did think that the rookie could eventually emerge as the alpha in this offense because of injuries, but I didn't expect the Saints to look so sluggish all the time.
Yeah, it hasn't been great.
You know what? I sort of resisted the Saints' urge during the offseason. People calling them the NFC favorites. You kind of are what you are, man. Mm-hmm. And Jameis, in a different system with Bruce Arians where it was no risk it, no biscuit, was fun, but the turnovers perpetually caught up to him. I don't know. This offense needs to figure some stuff out here in a hurry, and Michael Thomas left with the game with a foot injury. Dennis Allen specified after the game it was a toe issue, so we don't know whether he'll be available in week 4, but all aboard the Chris Olave train, back-to-back games with 13 targets,
That's right.
30+% target share, and I got to give it to him again. Mike Clay told us during the offseason, hunt those rookie wide receivers drafted in the first half of the first round with that pedigree. Chris Olave, add him to the Garrett Wilson and the Drake Londons and the others of the world that just keep on doing big things. You love to see it.
You love to see it. All right, we are going to talk some more big names here in a second, but first, because Liz is on with us long distance, we have a really big long distance bill to pay. So the NFL action is full swing here. You remember when phones used to cost money? Remember that long distance?
No, I wasn't alive for those days.
Stop it, Field Yates. The NFL action is in full swing here at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. And if that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. I freaking love these. Right now, for every leg that you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100%, with payouts even bigger than ever before. Why bet on football anywhere else? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code FFF to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code FFF only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. This gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Tennessee. Call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Bonus issued as free bets. One early win token issued at opt-in moneyline bets. Only deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at DraftKings.com/football terms.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Well, of course you would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage. Plus, add an easy-to-use Geico mobile app. It's available 24-hour roadside assistance and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
All right, let's talk about some running backs.
Let's have some discussions.
You know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. I realize
friends talking about football.
We
like
are
at a bar.
That we don't have enough alcohol for that yet, Field.
Okay.
And it's
Miller Lights on me.
pretty early in. Okay, well, yeah. All right, I'm into it. Let's talk about some running backs. Liz.
Breakfast beers.
I'm in on that. I want to talk about Damien Pierce. All right. We talked all off season about Damien Pierce, being pumped about this Damien Pierce hype train. Started a little bit slow to start the season, let's be honest. But here in week 3, it feels like this train is gaining momentum. Talk to me about Damien Pierce in this game.
Well, first, I am so thrilled as a Bears fan that I could offer experience to Damien Pierce investors. Congratulations. But yes, you are right that the momentum on the Pierce train is moving forward. Week 1, 12 carries. Week 2, 16 carries. Week 3, 22 carries.
Hey.
So we like that he finally outsnapped Rex Burkhead as well. That's the tricky part of this, though, right? Because Pierce is not really a pass catcher. He wasn't in college. He hasn't been utilized that way so far with the Texans. Burkhead was targeted 5 times. He caught 4 of those balls. Pierce, I do think he caught 2 balls. But again, if the Texans are coming from behind, which they look like a team that is regularly going to be in that situation, we don't love the game script for Damien Pierce. However, he has the Chargers in week 4. Now, a regular Chargers team, I might think, I don't know if I like those odds. But a Chargers team that's this banged up, I don't know. Maybe there's some keep away.
Hey.
Maybe there's some opportunities for Pierce. I think he now moves up inside of the top 30 instead of sort of staying in that purgatory.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, it's trending in the right direction. I would like to see their schedule going forward because, to Liz's point, they're playing from behind a lot. I still think Rex Burkhead will end up getting those valuable sort of hurry up situations when they play from behind, and I'll call it 2-minute offense, even if it's not within 2 minutes of the first half or the end of the game.
I think I'm just going to say a thing. He had a good game this week. I think, to Liz's point, if he has a good game against the Chargers next week, given how much I feel like that team is going to be playing from behind, I don't mind trying to potentially shop Damien Pierce if he's somebody that I didn't draft as my RB2, if I didn't specifically go out and grab him as a starter.
Counterpoint.
Okay.
There are no good running backs.
Okay, so maybe hold on to him.
Yeah, so it might be hard.
Okay,
Right?
all right.
You'd be like, yeah.
Are you shopping any running backs this year then? It's going to be tough. We'll see how the trade market works.
I'm not kidding you right now. Like, there are so few running backs that I view as like obvious tradable commodities because it's just going to be hard to find that equivalent.
All right, let's talk about, unfortunately, the other side of this, Liz. David Montgomery, someone that we were really excited about, and he looked freaking awesome in week 2. He looked fantastic while he was out there. Unfortunately, ended up leaving this game with an injury. But Khalil Herbert came in and looked like the absolute man there in the backfield.
Got some juice.
Yeah, these Bears running backs look like the real deal.
Yeah, we should not be surprised. Anyone who watched the Bears, and I apologize if you did, last season, you know that one of the bright spots was Khalil Herbert, who averaged 97 total yards over the 4 weeks that Montgomery was out in 2021. Herbert also saw, I believe, 11 red zone touches over that 4-week period. Now, my worry is that Herbert did enough to eat into Montgomery's carries, and now they're cannibalizing each other, and neither one of them is getting the 18 touches that we talked about wanting last week, right? I don't know if that's a little bit of an anxiety. However, if you follow the money and you realize that Montgomery is with a new regime and in the last year of his contract, it seems to me that the new regime would want to ride him as much as possible since he could become a free agent at the end of the season. So I'm still leaning to Montgomery. We have to see. Obviously, right now I believe he's day-to-day. We'll get more information. I'm sure Stefania will be on it in terms of what his availability for next week looks like. But Herbert is someone that needs to be, if you are a Montgomery investor, you have to have Herbert. And if you're not, go scoop that guy and use him as leverage, even if you don't want to trade for a running back because there are no good ones.
Yeah, I mean, after this game, if with him being 75% available, being able to go out there without knowing what's going to happen with David Montgomery.
Yeah, Matt Eberflus said after the game, the prognosis is good.
I saw that. Yeah. But still, a guy that I feel like, to Liz's point, needs to be at least not just monitored, but like very closely rostered.
I like when people use subjective terms to describe things. Right, like when I was in my scouting days, he always used to make us be so specific about things. Because if I said like this guy's got awesome speed and the other guy's got excellent speed, who's faster?
Like what's the difference between the two?
Who's faster? Which one? And because you're like, again, wait, this guy's got awesome, this guy's got excellent. Like, what's that mean, right? Mm-hmm. So when the outlook is good for David Montgomery, does good mean like he's not going to have to retire? Does it mean that he's going to be out for the rest of the year, but not for the rest of eternity? Does it mean he's going to be out for a month as opposed to 2 months? What does it mean?
Or is he just missing practice on Tuesday and Wednesday?
He might be back on by Thursday afternoon. Yeah. So we'll find out more on David Montgomery as the week progresses.
If you were, I guess we should wait from that standpoint then. Would you, understanding that, it's tough because knowing how bad running backs are, if Khalil Herbert turns out to be somebody that you need to roster and you're in a fab league, like obviously he'd be a waiver league, like how much of your fab do you think you would spend on a running back here?
Give me a day to think about that one.
Probably.
Yeah,
go
like
ahead.
15, 20%.
I was going to say 15, 20%, somewhere in that 20 range. All right, we'll think
Seems
about
reasonable
it.
to me. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this. Derrick Henry, he crushed it. You already mentioned it really early. He was fantastic.
Yeah, really good. Good to see. And
first 5 catches, and I just want to reiterate that. Just the fact that he was utilized in the passing game is what we wanted to see.
Second most catches in the game for Henry in his career. No idea if this will keep up. But before this slow start in the passing game this year, where he had 0 catches the first 2 games, he had 18 through 9 weeks last year. So there were some signs of life there in the passing game. And if the Titans consider continuing to throw him the football a bunch, I'll be happy about it. What a great gutty win for the Titans on Sunday.
Seriously,
just
great win.
The team that I thought I was thinking, am I sticking a fork in that team? We are not.
Another gutty win. How about Jonathan Taylor and the Colts?
Yeah, so impressed here by this
cow.
win. I mean, kind of out of nowhere, like it was, I don't know about smoke and mirrors, but a weird game, right?
Yeah, a little less fun from a fantasy standpoint for Jonathan Taylor. But it was really fun from watching them be able to go out there. However, Jonathan Taylor has been tough consecutive weeks outside the top 20 running backs. Doesn't mean anything. No, I'm still starting Jonathan Taylor.
No, you know what's funny, though, is that coming into the season, there was a school of thought that you should take Christian McCaffrey ahead of Jonathan Taylor.
There was.
A lot of people got very angry when you suggested anything of the sort. And I get why. I get it, right? We all said, though, that if the case for Christian McCaffrey is over Jonathan Taylor, he's going to have elite receiving, right? Meanwhile, it's McCaffrey who's getting the Jonathan Taylor-like rushing through the first 3 games of the season. So am I concerned? No. Am I disappointed? Yes, he's still Jonathan Taylor. He'll be a top 3 play for me again this week.
Like, so I'm concerned about everybody, but it's because I'm concerned about everyone that it's like, all right, so I guess I'm concerned about nobody because they all have the same level. Yeah, exactly.
They don't stink. Sorry.
It's just
they're all good. They're all amazing. it's just been a frustrating start to the season. For
thank you.
Backs.
It's fantasy football is an emotional sport, feels.
Yeah, sure is.
Ramadri Stevenson, 73 rushing yards, a touchdown, plus he got 4 catches for 28 yards, finished with 20.1 fantasy points, and the big takeaway here, he just outsnapped Damien Harris again this week.
Yeah, second straight week he did that, but Harris also found the end zone. You know, hard to sort of pinpoint this backfield. The Patriots played better on offense. What undid them was 3 turnovers. Tough matchup next week against the Packers. So I think Stevenson and Harris are both sort of like, Harris maybe closer to a borderline low end too because he's got a better track record of finding the end zone. But Stevenson's kind of like he's a flex play at running back, right? Again, there are so few good ones that right now he is a flex consideration. One thing I'm keeping an eye on, of course, well, I'll keep an eye on, is the status of Mac Jones. Because if Mac Jones isn't available, this Patriots offense, I know it hasn't been like explosive per se, but they look quite a bit better on Sunday than they did during the first 2 weeks of the season. And if they're able to look like that consistently with Mac Jones, there's more opportunities for touchdowns, which would be the gate that you need to sort of, break into for either Ramondre or Damien Harris to be low-end RB2s.
Well, speaking of those touchdowns, my dude Jamal Williams.
He's getting them.
He's been getting touchdowns, and in part because Deandre Swift has been banged up. He's Jamal Williams, just under 50% rostered.
Yeah.
Is he somebody coming out of week 3 here, understanding that Deandre Swift is still banged up?
Yes.
You need to add him.
I think he should be added because Deandre Swift is now playing through 2 separate
2
injuries,
weeks.
right? So
Yeah, and it's his shoulder and his
ankle.
Yep.
And remember last year, the Lions took the long approach with Deandre Swift. I believe it was a shoulder injury that shelved him for a handful of weeks late last season as well. It was a shoulder injury. So I don't know if that's related to the one he's playing through right now. He can continue to say that he's fine. But if his performance dips, and maybe this is a one-game aberration, and he is more hurt than he is currently leading on, then maybe the team would say to itself at some point, we have Jamal Williams, who not only is a good player, but Liz Loza, did you see his touchdown celebration today? Because that might not have made it onto the Disney airwaves if that game was on Monday Night Football. That was something.
I mean, he did his best Shakira impression.
Yeah.
Those hips did not lie.
His hips
I
do
loved
not lie.
it.
That's correct. Yeah.
His hips are quite a bit more fluid than mine are. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, same.
Let's talk about one more. Joe Mixon,
Yeah.
24 rushing yards in this game. Took it on the New York Jets, too. And I get that Jets have an okay defense, but I didn't expect it to be this. Still struggles with this Bengals offense.
And, I think the part that's most disappointing for the Bengals, and I'm fine with Joe Mixon, he had ridiculous workloads in both week 1 and week 2. Like, still a top 10 running back for me. But the yards per attempt are gross right now.
Wow.
How about this? Week 1, 3.0. Week 2, 3.0. Week 3, 2.0 yards per carry. Again, I know that the Bengals got a big win today, and they kind of blew out the Jets, but that offensive line is still a concern. They play on Thursday night. Ooh, good luck blocking that Miami front, which has got some really good players.
Seriously. All right. We are going to pay some bills first.
Okay.
But we'll be back in just a moment. Field.
Yep.
Do me a favor.
Okay.
Tell the people about Dr. Pepper.
I would love to, because the most wonderful time of the year is upon us again. It's college football season, baby. Dr. Pepper and the residents of Fansville invite you to revel in another one-of-a-kind year of flexing your foam finger, humming your school's fight song in your sleep, and thriving on a steady diet of buffalo chicken dip and post-game commentary.
Oh, yeah.
All washed down with the rich, delicious Dr. Pepper, of course. Another Saturday is always just around the corner, so make sure your tailgate doesn't turn into a failgate and pick up a case of ice-cold Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve.
Fantasy football season is here, and that means more of what you love. The teams, the rivalries, the stats, trash-talking friends. This season, you know your favorite players are hydrating with Body Armor Sports Drink on and off the field. Your favorite fantasy stars like Kyler Murray, Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, they all rely on Body Armor to get them to the next level and perform at their best and give you the trash-talking points that you need. It's made with potassium-packed electrolytes, antioxidants, no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or dyes, and coconut water. It's a great time to grab some Body Armor Sports Drink for yourself. Body Armor is a great option whether you're playing ball with friends, hauling coolers to a tailgate, or rooting for your team. Body Armor Sports Drink is more than just a sports drink. And now, through November 1st, buy any one Body Armor product at your local convenience store. Scan the QR code in store to enter to be one of hundreds of winners to receive a $100 in DraftKings prizing. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Open to residents of U.S. 21 and older. All right, Field, we talked about a bunch of running backs here. Let's go through some pass catchers. How does this sound?
A little better. I think I prefer to talk about Lamar Jackson more. But
honestly, the quarterbacks would probably be more fun.
Yeah.
All right, so my Detroit Lions took on the Minnesota Vikings, and so you know what that means.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson must have had himself a huge day,
What the
right?
heck, man? What's going on here?
That's not what happened.
It was not. Three catches for 14 yards for Justin Jefferson.
And who did end up having a day?
Adam Thielen, 6 for 61 in the touchdown. You like to see that, right?
So this has been 2 straight weeks of Justin Jefferson being, I don't want to say full on shut down, but like for Justin Jefferson, shut down from a fantasy perspective. Is there any pause? Is there any panic here? Or is this a situation where we've just seen 2 defenses say, we're going to try and take away this guy and we're going to make everyone else beat us?
No, you know what this is? This is like the kind of stuff that when you play fantasy football makes you want to pull your hair out, because here's what's going to happen. Is Justin Jefferson going to bounce back in a major way at some point? Probably soon, probably next weekend, right? Probably in London, across the pond. He's big over there. And he's going to have an absolutely monster day. Monster day at some point soon. But you're going to sit here and you're going to remember those 2 games where he was not good, right? This is what I say. This is my theory on golf. Is when I play golf and I play poorly, which is most of the time when I play golf, I hang on to like that one drive that I bombed down the middle of the fairway, or that one putt that I made that I probably wasn't even thinking and somehow made it, right? And when I play poorly when I play well, which is very infrequently, I remember about that short putt that I missed or that one drive that I put in the water, right? So when you have Justin Jefferson, when he goes off, you're going to be happy, but you're also be like, gosh, remember in week 2 when he had in week 3 and he had like 5 points? How about that time, huh? He's Justin Jefferson. He'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. I know it's annoying. It sucks. He's an amazing player. But shout out to Jeff Okudah. That's what I can say, because I'm really happy for you, dude, Jeff Okudah, who a couple players, him and James Robinson, have come back from major Achilles injuries, and shout out to those dudes balling out right now.
Yeah.
I dropped my papers.
Would you? That's all right. If you had to right now, Khalil Herbert or Justin Jefferson, which side?
PPR
of that?
or no?
Yeah, PPR.
Yeah, I'll go Jefferson.
Maybe Jefferson still. All right, just barely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that was just a joke, Liz. It was just Khalil Herbert did so well today. I saw your face and you were like, got nervous. I got afraid for a second. Let's talk about the Bengals. Holy cow! I am not excited about this. Joe Burrow. I get it. 275, 3 touchdowns. He actually had a pretty good fantasy day.
Excited?
No. Were you excited about the Bengals game?
I thought they played pretty well. Yeah, kind of like what they did. Tell me more. You tell me more. You go first.
So I thought Joe Burrow was fine. Didn't bother me. I thought he looked fantastic. My problem was the fact that he utilized these receivers in the reverse draft order that we drafted them in.
I was going to say, I like 23 fantasy points from Joe Burrow and 275 passing yards. That was mighty swell.
Tyler Boyd had 20.5 fantasy points. T. Higgins, 14.3. And Jamar Chase, only 12.7. It was just backwards from the way that we wanted it. That was all. It's just me complaining.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Let it out. Here's what I would say. The one thing that really has my interest piqued on this is like Tyler Boyd, this is more of a random game than I think anything else, Liz, is that yet again, T. Higgins is out-targeting Jamar Chase. We talked about this in the preseason. Like, there was that argument that maybe they should be more closely ranked. Is that the case? Like, should these two be more closely ranked week in and week out?
I don't think so. I think that Jamar Chase is still the number one. But I do think what's interesting is, last season we saw Joe Burrow support Higgins and Chase as like top 18 receivers, right? They were both fantasy relevant. We love to see both of them in it. Tyler Boyd was called into action if one of them was injured, and we really appreciated the narrow usage tree. We all also said over the summer that we should anticipate a regression, that there was no way Burrow could keep pace with those numbers. So we shouldn't be terribly surprised that there's a regression and that defenses are keying in on Jamar Chase after last year's performance. He still found the end zone this week. He still got you 6. That may not be what you wanted when you drafted him, but we just complained about Justin Jefferson, right? Stephon Diggs didn't score either. Everybody chill out. There's only going to be so much available. And T. Higgins, who, by the way, took another hard hit. So now I'm watching that. I'm definitely tracking his injury, especially since he entered the season with a shoulder problem, right? Like, I'm not terribly worried about it. I like T. Higgins in the red zone normally. And if defenses are going to continue to key in on Chase, then you might see Tyler Boyd get a little bit lucky, and you're probably going to see Higgins. But then next week, maybe defense will adjust, and you're going to see T. Higgins taken away more, and then Jamar Chase is going to run for 40 yards after the catch and blow up your whole stat line. Yeah,
I think that's about right. It's just going to be back and forth, I feel like. And it's going to be tough to be able. There's not like a call every week. You're starting both of those guys every week.
So we're, I don't know, maybe 40 or so minutes into the show. And what I'm noticing is that we've gone through like a laundry list of players that are going to be in the Pro Bowl for like the next 10 years. And it's like, we can only have so many guys where we're like, well, you're disappointing. Like, do you have to move out of here? No, like, these are stars, right? And this is this silly game that we play. And Daniel and I were hanging out on Sunday at the end of the 4 p.m. games. And we were just sort of like, man, like this, the beauty of this is that we have no idea what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And this felt like a week where, more so than other weeks, that was the case. A lot of disappointing stars. But next week when we're doing our rankings, Jamar Chase probably, I don't know, wide receiver 5 for me. Maybe wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 6. But I'm playing him. Disappointing, but better days are ahead.
Well, good news for you, Field. I just looked at our note, and the disappointing days are basically behind us for the next couple of players. Because we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, because holy crap, they looked, sorry, Mom, I apologize. I didn't mean to say holy crap on here. But holy cow, they looked fantastic.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is unreal. 340 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, another 20 rushing yards. He's locked in as an every week starter. The real question is, Devonte Smith came on. You already talked about it.
Yeah.
Looked fantastic. A.J. Brown, a little bit of a lesser week because of that.
Yeah.
5 for 85 and a touchdown. I guess if that's a lesser week for A.J. Brown, I'll take it.
Take it.
No big deal. 19.5 fantasy points. I'm starting everybody from this Eagles offense other than maybe running backs if I can help it.
And you start Dallas Goedert. Yeah,
Start
the running
Dallas
backs,
Goedert.
it was a disappointing day for Miles Sanders, but that comes after back-to-back, like pretty solid weeks. You want as much of this offense as possible. And if you were doing a quarterback-only draft right now, I think Jalen Hurts falls. Lowest is probably quarterback 5. Highest is probably 2 or 3, right? Lamar, I think, would be the preferred number 1. Maybe Josh Allen. I think it's probably a Mahomes conversation from there / Jalen Hurts. Those two in the running. I mean, he's been spectacular. And this is a fantasy football show, but I'm extremely thrilled for Jalen Hurts because we talked all offseason about how so few quarterbacks were facing the kind of pressure that Jalen Hurts was. Every year he gets better. Mm-hmm. Every year in his entire life he gets better at football. That has continued in year 3.
Agreed.
I just want to say I love the confirmation of the Devonte Smith blow up. Because to me, it means from a skill set perspective, he is allowed to do what he is supposed to do given his skill set. A physical player like A.J. Brown added to the offense allows Devonte Smith to be the vertical field stretcher, to do the thing, to be the speed guy that he's supposed to be. He was playing as the X all last year. That is not what he was built physically and metaphorically to do on the field, with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball over 30 times a game and doing it fairly efficiently. Then yes, we love to see the confirmation of where these players are playing and how they're being utilized.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Lamar Jackson, too. Fields, you mentioned him and crushed it or flushed it. Obviously fantastic. 1.01. Let's say you were taking, not 1.01, I take that back. You're taking a first quarterback off the board. Now,
right now it's Lamar Jackson. It's
Lamar
Jackson. And again, my fantasy insight, he has more avenues to fantasy success. He's throwing the ball at an extremely high level right now. He's making some unbelievable throws, rushing the football better than ever. Just don't take this for granted is all I can say. Don't take this for granted because we are witnessing potentially yet another historic season from Lamar Jackson. I'm not sure we've ever seen a quarterback like him. The combination of just unbelievable passing that can only be matched by his dazzling running. So fun to watch. Lamar Jackson, cheat code.
Mark Andrews, while Lamar Jackson is doing well, usually Mark Andrews does pretty well. 13 targets this week, 8 catches, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's uncoverable. The guy makes
so
unbelievable
good.
catches. Before the season began, we had the conversation about whether you should use a first-round pick on a tight end. If you use one of Mark Andrews, you're probably sitting here laughing right now, saying, oh, you didn't think it was a good idea? How does it feel to have an absolute behemoth in your lineup every single weekend with the decided advantage, 28.9 fantasy points? Meanwhile, you're over there starting some bozo who had 1 target. Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel like I would take Mark Andrews in the first round over half of the running backs that I drafted in the first round right now. So
we're going too far, but yeah,
I'm in on that.
Yeah.
All right, so real quick. Devin Duvernay got in the end zone again, Field Jace.
Yeah.
This has been a Rashad Bateman conversation, but Devin Duvernay, 3 straight weeks. I hear you saying, you're still not feeling it?
Yeah, no. He's got 8 targets this year. He's caught them all, but he's got 4 touchdowns, 1 in the return game, and 3 as a receiver. Nice player. Solid player. Happy for him. But
good NFL player. Not from fantasy.
Yep.
How about a guy like Devontae Parker? Devontae Parker, 5 catches on 10 targets for 156 yards. This felt like it was more because Jacoby Myers was out, less about Devontae Parker just all of a sudden becoming a guy.
He's like a solid football player, but not a fantasy starter by any stretch. And again, we'll talk about this more when we have more information. But Mac Jones' uncertainty for Week 4 certainly casts a much different light on this Patriots outlook against the Packers.
Absolutely. All right, Liz. Tyler Conklin, you mentioned him last week. Had a great week last week. Caught all 8 targets this week for 84 more yards. Tyler Conklin looks like a lock at tight end right now for the Jets.
Yeah, and this week, CJ Uzomah was back, right? So the argument against Conklin was there was no Uzomah available the past 2 weeks, and that was why Conklin had managed a top 10 route participation rate of over 80%. I think we said on FF Now, right? He'd run the most routes of anybody at the position heading into the week. Now and I think he's seen at least 7 targets in every single game.
He has, yep.
He was ultra efficient. He's going to be part of the streaming conversation every single week, especially when you've got, Dalton Schultz banged up, and frankly, the position just being very scarce.
Yeah. I love that, Liz. Let's talk about someone else. Mac Hollins, another guy that I thought was fantastic this week.
Great hair.
Does have great hair. Does have great hair.
Great hair.
10 targets, 8 catches for 158 yards and a touchdown. I don't understand this. Matt Collins seems like he's come out of nowhere and become all of a sudden some fantasy darling that we need to start paying attention to.
Well, Josh McDaniels anointed him, like clearly loves the vertical presence that Hollins brings to the game. There was no Hunter Renfrow. They're very different players, but from a volume perspective, clearly that helped Hollins a lot. Heading into this week, Hollins had run just 7 fewer targets than Devonte Adams, and Devonte Adams had run 82. And Hollins had caught more balls and run more routes than Hunter Renfrow. So it was his time to shine. Derek Carr hit the over on 1.5 touchdowns. Thank you. And it was Hollins who got the second one. I think we're going to see his role grow, and he's going to be that vertical threat in this offense.
Yeah, I really wanted to see Devonte Adams or Darren Waller or really anyone else be the vertical threat in this offense. No, it's nothing against Matt Collins.
Raiders are the only team in the NFL that's 0-3. Only one.
Didn't they spend a lot of money this offseason?
About $500 million.
About $500 million.
Which, if you're Jeff Bezos, it's not that much, but if you're everybody else, it's a lot.
It's
so
a
I
lot.
guess it depends on what prism you're viewing.
What you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Robert Woods to come on and be a fantasy usable wide receiver this week.
Yeah, better days.
We finally saw some good things.
Yeah, pretty good. 9 targets today. No Kyle Phillips. 4 catches for 85 yards. Passed the eyeball test here. So not a fantasy lock by any stretch, but a guy that if he continues to be the number one in this offense and they continue to play better offense like they did today in week 3 than they did in the first 2 weeks, then maybe a pulse there for Bobby Trees.
Last guy from the 1 o'clock games.
Okay.
Josh Reynolds.
Yeah. This reminds me of News or Noise we used to do back in the day.
That's fair. Which is totally fair.
Something or nothing, right?
The Lions offense has scored a ton of points. That's the only reason why.
The only reason that I think this is notable is Amon-Ra St. Brown left the game. He came back. He's clearly banged up with an ankle injury as well. And I don't even want to think about this possibility.
Yeah,
you
me
wouldn't
either.
have Amon-Ra St. Brown
Don't even
available
say
to
it.
you.
You've been speaking stuff into existence.
Okay,
Don't even
thank
say
you.
it. We're just going to move on.
That's
to
the
the
only way
4
that
p.m.
Josh Reynolds matters.
All right, that's fair. All right. Let's talk about the 4 p.m.
Rip
games.
through 'em.
Holy cow. Hollywood Brown looked like, he lived up to the name today. 14 catches on 17 targets, 140 yards.
I'd have to check the tape here. I'm pretty sure every single one of these 14 catches was on the exact same play. Like it was just basically run a comeback, catch the ball for like 6 yards, pick up 4 after the catch, and get tackled. And it was all in like somehow the Cardinals, rather than having 1st and 10, they had 1st and 20. If they got a first down, it was 1st and 20 because it felt like the Rams were like, oh, you want to have 14 catches for 140 yards total? Fine, go ahead, have at it. Doesn't bother us a bit.
No.
But hey, volume's been excellent through 3 games for Hollywood Brown. He's been probably everything you could hope for if you drafted him in somewhere like the 5th round.
Volume has also been awesome, Liz, for a guy named Greg Dortch. Over the last 3 weeks, Greg Dortch has over 13 fantasy points in every single week. We thought this was going to be Rondale Moore's role. He's obviously been out, been dealing with an injury, and so Greg Dortch has really taken advantage of it. Only rostered in like 8%
Put some
of leagues.
respect on his name.
Does Greg Dortch need to be rostered at this point after 3 weeks of having double-digit fantasy points?
No.
No.
I don't. I mean, like we are. Here's the question. I will answer it with a question, which I know might be cheating. But if you add Greg Dortch, are you gonna sit Justin Jefferson? Are you gonna sit Stephon Diggs? Like, are you actually going to flex him? How many do you want to speak into existence the amount of start-sit questions you get involving Greg Dortch if he's added everywhere on FF Now?
I've played Greg Dortch in 2 different leagues where I needed a flex. And in those situations, he's actually paid off because he scored points. However, I understand the fear here from that standpoint. He's just getting work. I don't know what to say. Like, he's not sexy. There's not a whole lot of fun. And maybe you don't need him. But if you need a wide receiver off the waiver wire, he's somebody that I've looked at just because of the fact that he scored double-digit points in every single game so far this year.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I mean, I this is one where when you play in a 16-team league, you're like, Greg Dortch is useful. I get it. A 10-team league, probably a tough
Maybe
start.
a little
But until DeAndre Hopkins returns and with no A.J. Green and no Rondale Moore, yeah, fire up the Dortcher chamber.
Can you, I'm not sure that I'm just going to keep on going.
Okay.
No, I'm just going to keep on
chamber.
going. No, it's all right.
Okay. I'll leave it be.
Kyle Pitts. You were this close to speaking this one to existence, Field. Didn't get a touchdown, but 5 for 87 is a heck of a lot better than what we got the first 2 weeks for Kyle Pitts. So thank you for that.
Gotta be honest with you, Daniel. I got to be honest with you. I was hoping for a touchdown. But I can't complain about
No,
5 catches and
no
87
way.
yards, baby. Let's go. Kyle Pitts, more than 2 catches in a game, more than 19 receiving yards in a game.
Thrilled.
I'm kind of, I'm sort of feeling myself today, right? Like dirt off my shoulder. Woo.
That's so good. What are you going to do?
what are you
You're
gonna do?
going to keep starting him at tight end every single week. Drake London looked fantastic. Liz,
did, yeah.
another guy that looked great. Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yes!
Holding it down for the old men. What do you like about CP out there?
Coming into this week, he averaged 18 touches per game. How many are you getting this week? 18 touches. This is some
Nice
nice
call by you.
consistency. And he was a running back that did not suck. 17 carries for over 140 yards and a touchdown. He looked great. He was breaking off chunk runs. The matchup against the Seahawks, obviously favorable. And we love his versatility, even if he wasn't used in the passing game this week. We still love that he has that availability to him, which keeps him on the field because Tyler Algier, as much as we anticipate maybe him taking over that early downs role, is not nearly the same player in terms of versatility as CP.
No, right now his availability is Cordarrelle Patterson's one of Cordarrelle Patterson's best abilities. Dang it, I did that wrong. I said availability twice.
But whatever. Patterson, undervalued coming into the season. He has proved that through the first 3 games. He's twice set a career high for rushing yards. I love me some CPAT.
Let's talk about Jacksonville.
Let's end on a high note. Let's do it, shall we?
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Let's take a minute to shower some praise here. So, shout out to you, Jacksonville. And I want to tell you something very clearly right now. We sometimes say things that we regret. And one thing that I regret is maybe poo-pooing the Jaguars off-season spending. Right? It was too much. Maybe it wasn't too much. As Zay Jones, who got a big contract, 3 years, $27 million, he had 10 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown on Sunday against the Jaguars. Christian Kirk had 6 catches for 72 yards. He now has 3 touchdowns this season. He had another game with 115 yards. Both of those guys have been an integral part of a team. It's now 2-1. They've won back-to-back games by 20-plus points for the first time since 2000. 22 years ago, 2000. The Jaguars look like an entirely different team. Shout out Doug Peterson doing a great job with this offense right now. Trevor Lawrence looks like, Trevor Lawrence. Those 2 guys, Christian Kirk was already close to a lineup lock. Zay Jones has a chance to work his way into the conversation because we're seeing less of Marvin Jones, more of Zay Jones. There was some preseason buzz surrounding Zay, and it was deserved because he's looked like a real player. Happy for that kid. He was a 2nd-round pick by the Bills several years ago, who had a weird start to his career, but has really played well in recent opportunities.
Weird start to his career, but then he had that cool viral video where he stood up backwards, right?
I still don't know how he did that.
I don't either. I've watched it a bunch. I never really understood that. I'll tell you what. One other guy though, while we're heaping on praise, James Robinson coming back looks fantastic this year.
Only player with a rushing touchdown in every game this season. Salute to you, James Robinson. Only one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the running back that you should have drafted, and that's it. That's it. Oh, we should really quickly. Cooper Kupp also scored. He did some stuff today. 16
How about this? People are like,
fantasy
dude,
points.
Cooper Kupp only got me 16.4 fantasy points. Think about the standard that you have set for yourself in life. If you're disappointed that Cooper Kupp only got you 16.4 fantasy points, only.
You know what that is? That's
greed.
That's floor. Like if this is his floor, and you're right, that is greed when you're upset about 16.4 floor.
Fewest receiving yards for Cooper Kupp since Matthew Stafford became his quarterback. Snaps a streak of 15 straight games with at least 90 receiving yards. Still found the end zone on a 20-yard rush. I just want you to know, Cooper Kupp, because I know you're out there listening right now, I appreciate you. I have no ill will towards you for a, air quotes, down night.
Crap. I took him to have 110 yards for red zone during FF Now.
I think I did too. No, I said below.
No, you said below. I think it was just me. Shoot.
Every once in a while.
All right. Well, you can't win them all. And I didn't win a bunch of them here in week 3. That's all right, though. We are going to be back on Tuesday, tomorrow. Me, Field, Stefania, our good buddy Eric Moody is going to break down everything you need to know about the waiver wire. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. We love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. Good luck here for the rest of week 3. You have Monday Night Football.
Enjoy it. I got the Cowboys.
I got the Cowboys, too. Liz, who are you taking, Cowboys or Giants?
I'm going to take the Cowboys.
How about them?
Cowboys across. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. See ya.
Later, Gator. Now I want to pick the Giants. Everybody else picked the Cowboys. It makes me nervous.
I don't want to pick the Giants. No, thank you.